two, one, two, three. Oh, Charlie had a story.
Welcome back to the Munn Avenue Muse, the podcast where we dive deep into the minds behind the books, authors, storytellers, and creative voices who shape the world one word at a time. And it's brought to you today by the Munn, M-U-N-N, Avenue Press.com. I'm your host, Charlie Levin, and today we have a fascinating conversation lined up with author Peter Solomon, whose new book, 100 Years to Extinction, is part speculative fiction, part coming-of-age story, and all heart. It's gripping, hopeful, and deeply timely novel that follows three Gen Z cousins who make a bold promise to do something, anything to save humanity from its own worst instincts. Peter Solomon is a PhD scientist, author, and entrepreneur. We'll talk to Peter about the real-world inspiration behind the story. Yes, Stephen Hawking is involved. How he writes from the perspective of young characters navigating science and politics, and what authors can do when tackling global themes in fiction. Whether you're a writer, a reader, or someone trying to make sense of the chaos around us, this episode is for you. So grab your coffee, your notebook, or your telescope, and let's jump in. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you here. And to start us off, tell us what was the original spark that led to 100 years to extinction? Was it Stephen Hawking's quote, the pandemic, or something more personal?
Well, it really was personal. I actually 100 Years to Extinction was the third name that I gave to the novel after I started looking at the predictions of Stephen Hawking. But I had my own predictions. I'm a scientist. I've developed lots of technologies, and I've looked at the technologies that the science community has created over the last 200 years. There has just been enormous scientific progress during that time. But I look at what we've created and I see every one of the marvels, every single one of these amazing technologies that we have created has terrible downsides. And as a scientist, I've been working on creating the technologies and have not worried about the downside. Well, I'm now worried about the downside. And just to summarize what technologies I'm talking about, we start in the 1800s with the development of fossil fuels. And of course, we all know the downside of that, it's climate change. And then in the 20th century, wonderful new technology of nuclear energy, nuclear medicine, but the terrible downside of atomic weapons. The largest hydrogen bombs have a 150-mile destruction radius. Then we move on to the end of the 20th century and into this century, and I identify three technologies. One is the internet and its capacity for deep fakes and spreading conspiracy theories. The two others are AI and genetic engineering. Both of them have possible terrible downsides that we really have to worry about and do something now to start controlling them. So those were my five. I resonate with Hawking on almost all of them. he worried about asteroid impacts. I think we've probably fixed that with our DART program, where we send up a rocket to shoot down an asteroid that's dangerous. He also worried about pandemics, and I think genetic engineering has supplied us with a great new weapon to create vaccines in record time, and we did that for COVID. So, but the five that I mentioned are still very, very much worries.
Yeah, and I will just say, stay tuned in, because there is hope and there is an answer. And it's funny, when I write thrillers myself, and with a technology bent, they're really techno thrillers. And as authors and concerned citizens of humanity, we often do ask the question, what can go wrong?
Yeah.
And I've done that in my novels, and I know Peter has as well. But then at the same time, we're always looking towards the solutions. So the book blends a deeply personal story with these global existential risks. How did you balance the character-driven storytelling and the big picture science and politics?
Actually, I let my characters do the balance. The
Well, and I think in part what makes the story compelling, yes, we have these threats, but when you bring it down to a personal level with wonderful personalities and real people, it's more engaging for the reader to follow their story, both their struggles and their promise, a pact that they make to attack or the problem and try and resolve it. Uh, there's a lot of real world science and politics and news embedded in this, but how did you do the research and decide what to include in the story?
Well, I mean, it starts with those five technologies that I worry about. It also has some of today's politics in this country that I worry about. That is blocking, in many cases, our ability to solve the problems. So let me just give you a little background. I have 12 grandkids, and a bunch of them are in the Gen Z category, and I worry about their future. But as an author, I do something that is just terrific. I use their personalities, their characters, some of the things that they say and do as models for the characters. So I've got three young Gen Z characters who actually tell the story. The most of the chapters are first person accounts of the three young people. They are two sisters and their cousin. There's Aster and Liz and Milo. And as I write the book, and they have to contend with these technology threats, I imagine the world in which they are living and what they would be doing to try to combat these threats, and that's how the balance gets done. That they have their own lives, which they relate, and then they have their actions to try to combat some of the problems that we face. And they do that as they go along, trying to live their lives and have their friendships and see the world and all of those things which normal kids would do.
Yeah, and it's we're all kind of living in that same duality, in the sense that you have to pick the kids up from school. You have to, pack their lunches, and somebody's building a mall down the street from you, so you're going to go to the meeting tonight. But at the same time, there's these big global things going on, so that we have to be aware of. And your characters are charming and engaging, which helps us want to follow their personal story as well as the bigger picture that you're dealing with. And
Charlie,
you've written other books for young audiences too. I mean, how does this all fit in with your goals?
yeah, let me get to that in a second. Let me just give
Okay.
you an example of this business of living your life and looking at the global picture. Um, I have a house at the shore in Connecticut, and we go there in the summer. We go down there every weekend. We cross over the bridge from New London into Groton, and every time I cross that bridge, I look to the right, and there are all of these big cranes looming uh, even above the bridge. And underneath the cranes are all these parts for windmills. There's this huge project, and New London is the base of operation to take all of the parts for windmills, put them on barges, and get them out to sea where they build the uh, the wind farms. Well, every time I pass that, I think about global warming and wind energy. And then I have to think about the politics of the Trump administration closing down that project, which was 80% complete. And
Wow.
then just recently, the legal battle over it to remove the restriction and so they can start it again. But every time I cross that bridge, all of those global issues.
I guess that's a real life example of
Yes,
that struggle. And in a way, we've had you started with the 1800s, but there's been this tension through the last 200 years of progress versus resistance.
yes.
And some of it was well intentioned or maybe even correct, but then some of it thwarts solutions to real problems we have, and that's kind of what we're dealing with now. And yeah,
All
so
right. The
yeah,
books.
I mentioned my other question was you've written other books for audiences before, young audiences before. How does this fit in with your overall thinking?
Well, okay. So I'm a scientist. I've got a PhD in physics, and I have just loved science. I've my whole working career, uh, it's going to work almost all the time was like going to play, uh, figuring out wonderful things and doing inventions and learning about the world. And it occurred to me, this is after I retired from the businesses that I helped to run and start, um, that there's so many wonderful, wonderful stories in science. There's this amazing, amazing story of the Big Bang on how it all started. And the thought occurred to me that so many kids are missing out on the wonderful stories because they're being taught with equations, they're being taught formally, they're being taught to try to make scientists of them. And we don't need to make scientists of them. Let's just tell them the stories. And so that was the idea behind the two books that I wrote. Put the science in the story. And so the first book was called The Stardust Mystery. And the mystery was you are made of stardust that was once in the body of Albert Einstein and the last T Rex. Now, this is an absolutely true statement. Okay, present that to a kid and say, figure it out. What's stardust? And how in the world do I have it in my body when it was once in the body of Albert Einstein and the last T-Rex? That's crazy.
Yeah,
But it's true. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
and so the book, The Stardust Mystery, leads the kids through a contest where they have a wonderful website where they get to do time travel and space travel, and they go space traveling back almost to the Big Bang, and they can do all kinds of investigations. And the way they figure out what stardust is they look for the atoms that were formed. As they go back in time, there are very few atoms that they can see, and they go back far enough so there are only basically helium. And they use their spaceship to home in on where that helium is coming from, and stardust. They see the helium that is most dense, obviously coming from the explosion of a star. So, stardust. So atoms are stardust. And then they start doing all of the go ahead in time and find out that the second generation of stars produced all the heavier atoms. And then they start tracking the numbers of those atoms, and they figure out that a carbon atom that was once in a T-Rex, that they have so many carbon atoms in their own body that when the T-Rex exhaled the carbon, some of those carbons have got to be in them. So
Right.
that was, well, the carbon went into carbon dioxide, which went into the asparagus that they ate at lunch. And so now I've got some
Yeah.
carbon atoms from a T-Rex, and the same for Albert Einstein.
I think I think your books would have a real place in the classroom. The It's a balance to learning all the equation stuff. It's funny.
Yeah.
I was a physics geek myself in high school, and I went to college with the intention to study physics. And as a sign of how things change, I as at my graduation from high school, I won the prize for the most likely to be a successful engineer. And you know what the prize was, Peter? It was a slide rule. I still have it,
You and I know what that is.
yeah, there's a good chance half our audience doesn't know what a slide rule is. Google it. It's like it. I would compare it to a sundial with current technology.
Right,
But that's
exactly.
the way we figured stuff out at the time. So it's a great reminder of how things change. Well, if there's any teachers out there, I recommend you check out Peter's book. And for people
Problem.
who want to read it, and I highly recommend it. 100 Years to Extinction is available right now on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. Your local bookstores can order it. Treat yourself. And I want to let you know to keep an eye out in the next month or so for an audiobook version that will be narrated by 3 narrators voicing the young Gen Z trio that are the heroes in this story. So if you look at Peter's website, 100yearstoextinction.com, or keep an eye out on his Amazon page, the audiobook will appear. hopefully by Christmas. So we'll keep you up to date on that too. So
The
yeah,
the concept then for doing the all of these problems of the world as a novel, as a story, came from the two science books that I produced. Unfortunately, the books and the games that we produced and the lessons all culminated in the final product right at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, when everyone shut down. The schools didn't come back to normal for 4 years. So
yeah,
that was, maybe I'll go back and try awakening the teachers to the books again. But yeah,
yeah,
that's how that happened.
yeah. No, that changed a lot of things, not only for education, but yeah, I think it's what might be worth the effort, Peter, to to revisit that.
Yeah.
Um, so tell me, Peter, is there any kind of sequel in the works? What are you working on now?
Well, the sequel is ruining my life.
What do you mean? Explain.
Explain. Well, here's how it happened. Uh, I have a website, and the website is 100yearstoextinction.com. That's
That's 100.
100 years to extinction.com. And the website has got a newsletter. And I was working on the September newsletter, which was going to be on the AI singularity. The term singularity was used to apply to technology by von Neumann uh, back in the last century to um, describe a turning point where the technology sort of gets out of hand. Um, and then it was used by a science fiction writer, Werner Vinge, to describe the AI singularity. And then more recently by Ray Kurzweil, who wrote in 2005, "The singularity is near." And then just last year, "The singularity is nearer." And this is the point at which AI, the AI technology, becomes so powerful that humans are put at an incredible disadvantage. We don't know how to control it anymore. So if you're reading the newspaper, AI is usually in the newspaper every day with some story. And some of the stories are um, just crazy. There's a story about Chat GPT convincing some guy he was a super genius that had invented a software that would bring down the internet and power some sort of a levitation device. It, it was all false. The Chat GPT was just being a sycophant and a flatterer and just leading him along with lies. There's a recent piece in New York Times about AI uh, going down the AI spiral. And in that is a story about a young man named Adam, young boy, 16-year-old boy that committed suicide. And Chat GPT helped him do it.
Yeah, it gave him instructions. I remember seeing that, how
Right.
to do it.
Well,
So tell me about the sequel, though. How does this lead to
okay.
the
So,
substance of the new book?
yes. So while I'm writing this newsletter, all of a sudden it struck me my three characters are going to be living through this 2045 AI singularity point, how are they going to deal with it? And my brain just went like, and I said, I got to do this. And I started writing the sequel in September. I got my editor, Barbara Ellis, involved. She's all in on helping with the sequel. And since September, it is half written. Unlike the 2 years it took to produce 100 Years to Extinction, this book is going to be finished in 3 months. And the topic is so rich. In one chapter, the young people go to a funeral of a tech billionaire whose name is Elton Metz. He's the guy who sponsored the first trip to Mars. And by the way, two of my protagonists in 100 Years to Extinction end up in a colony on Mars. Well, they go to this funeral, and the pastor comes out in the church and says that the eulogy will be given by a very special guest. And out onto the dais walks the guy who died, Elton Metz. He says, I'm here to give the eulogy of my physical body, and I want to introduce you to my new robot body that will carry on my work. Well, think about that. Immortality. We take our whole history, and there are businesses now which will create what they call afterlife avatars. They'll take your whole history, all your friends, pictures of your friends, put them on the computer, and create an avatar for you.
Yeah. It's funny. I wrote my first book, Not So Dead, which came out in 2017, which is 8 years ago, was all about uploading your brain to the cloud so that you could live digitally forever. And I had no idea how far that might go, but we're seeing it happen now. And what inspired me to write that story was something I had read years before, that Google was investing billions in dollars, and there's several startups now that are trying to figure out how to digitize your thoughts and memories in order to preserve them.
Right from the head.
Right.
Well,
now, ChatGPT can interview you. And if it interviews you for about 2 hours and asks you 100 questions, it's pretty much got your personality down.
Exactly.
Your likes, your dislikes, your politics, your family, your kids, your experiences. You get enough of that data, and you got a pretty good picture. And then there's the site character.ai, which mimics famous characters and psychologists and all this kind of stuff. So it's the Wild West out there and on Mars as well, right? So
So my characters also, one of the things that they have is pictures of all their friends and descriptions of their friends. So the computer camera can see who's talking to them on the computer, and they recognize the person. So they come up with this brilliant idea. This is another one of the parts of the new book. They've created a after-death avatar for Grandpa, and they've created another one for Dr. Q. And at one point, the family is talking to the after-death avatars on the screen, and somebody comes up with a great idea. Let's point the screens at each other, and they can talk to each other. And they talk and they talk and they talk, and Grandma decides to shut them down when they start talking about their sex lives. So the further evolution of that story is that they then create the robots with the latest software that allows for sentient robots, and then they install all of the avatar data into the new robots, and now they're walking around old friends together again.
Yeah,
So
and if you're out there listening, you may think, well, this is all sounds like crazy stuff. It's not.
it's
It's
not.
it's pretty much here right now,
It's yeah,
and it's just a
absolutely.
matter of your being exposed to it. But
So
it's pretty much here. So
that's what the sequel is about, to expose people to this issue. And there's an interesting situation where the dealing with the robots and the large language models on Mars is in a nice controlled situation where they can put in the appropriate steps. And so Mars has a wonderful relationship with the AI world and with the robots. And the last part of the book is the two
don't give us any
sisters.
spoiler alerts
No,
now.
no, they right. But they do travel back to Earth to help with Earth's problem. What in the world are we going to do with this AI singularity?
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
was so compelling that I dream about it. And I think about it in the middle of the night. I get up and I put in 10 hours writing.
Well, that's, when you're really deep into writing a book, it's you go to sleep at night and your subconscious, your unconscious mind works on it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
you wake up in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning with all these new
Oh,
ideas. Yeah, that's sort of part of it. And that's also part of the reason, and we do have a number of authors that are listeners. That's a good reason for also why you should write every day. Because if there's a gap between when you wrote yesterday and then you come back 3 weeks from now, you lose that flow and you have to start all over again. Whereas if you're really on it, which Peter really is, it just keeps coming and you can do it much more quickly and more effectively. I think what you're doing is great. So, Peter, if you could give one piece of advice to writers tackling big themes like climate change or misinformation, what would it be?
I mean, I just love this format of integrating it into a novel. I think it can reach the nonfiction treatises reach the experts. But in many cases where we're talking about climate change and the dangers of AI, we want to reach everybody. We need to motivate everyone. We need to start a movement. And I think the best way to do that is with a novel. So my advice is integrate all of these ideas into a compelling story with lovable characters.
Yeah. Well, it goes to, I've always felt this way. I mentioned it before, I'm sure, but I think if you can entertain people first with a good story, they're receptive to a message as opposed to coming at it from, oh, we got this problem, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do that. The mind shuts down. But I've done a fair amount of public speaking, and if I see people, I'm always looking at faces in the audience, and if I see people drifting off a little bit, I say, let me tell you a story. And when I
Right.
say that, everybody perks up
Yeah.
and they want to hear the story. What's the story? So you're definitely on the right track there. Peter, it was such a pleasure working with you on 100 Years to Extinction. I look forward to hopefully working with you on the sequel.
Absolutely. And Charlie, it's been fantastic working with you. I certainly have got the feeling that you've got my back. You're always available to talk to, and you're doing all the stuff that you can to get this novel out there and uh, and and publicized and sold. So the other advice I would have to authors is go see Charlie. He can help.
Thank you very much. I'd be glad to hear from them. You can reach out to me at MUNN Avenue Press.com if you have a book or a message or something you want to talk about there. And Peter, I don't do this with every author, but you and I talk almost every day, it seems. And I enjoy the conversation. So I'm learning a lot from you as well. Yeah, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and your upcoming stories with us.
My pleasure.
So, this was Peter Solomon, and if you're not racing to pick up a copy of 100 Years to Extinction, I highly recommend it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, ask your local bookstore. And one thing that works for one of my other authors is he sends all his relatives to libraries and requests a copy, and libraries like to accommodate. So many libraries will order a copy of 100 Years to Extinction if you go ask for it. It's smart, moving, and packed with the kind of themes that linger long after the last page. You can find links to the book, Peter's website, and all the resources we're talking about in the show notes for today's episode at MUSE.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow writers or readers who might love what we're doing here. Until next time, keep writing, keep reading, and keep imagining the world not just as it is, but as it could be. Until next time.
Okay.
Were you going to say something, Peter?
I was. For a fun thing, readers can go to my website and go to the music tab. And one of the things we did is use AI to create a piece of music warning everybody about the dangers of AI and other technologies.
Well, maybe we can play a little short sample of that.
All right.
We'll do it.
That would be great.
Okay. Thanks so much again, Peter.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
100 years before it's too late to control the forces that threaten our fate. Undo